My wife's last words were, "Take care of our little girl." I held her hand as cancer stole her away, and I swore on her grave I'd never let our daughter suffer. For 12 years, I destroyed my body, driving through blizzards, emptied my retirement, ignored my doctor's warnings, all to keep that promise. But standing outside her door on Christmas Eve, arms full of gifts I couldn't afford, I heard my daughter laugh and say, "If the old fool dies in this blizzard, we get everything. Merry Christmas to us." What I did next will haunt you. But first, tell me, what would you do if you discovered the person you'd die for was actually waiting for you to die? The steering wheel burned cold through my gloves as I navigated Interstate 80 through the worst blizzard Nebraska had seen in 40 years. My name is Garrett Thorne, and at 64, with hands twisted by severe arthritis, I had no business driving 16 hours from Chicago to Denver on Christmas Eve. But a father's love doesn't calculate odds. The back seat overflowed with meticulously wrapped presents, a designer coat for my daughter Meredith, rare books for her husband Jasper, toys for grandchildren they kept promising but never delivered. Each gift chosen with money I didn't have, credit cards I shouldn't have maxed, because Christmas meant everything to my late wife Carolyn. My doctor had begged me not to make this drive. "Garrett, your spine can't take 16 hours in a car. Your arthritis is advancing. This could paralyze you." But Meredith had called 2 weeks ago, crying. "Dad, Jasper's startup failed. We might lose the house. I don't know how we'll even have Christmas." The wire transfer had been instant. $20,000, my entire emergency fund. It was always instant with Meredith. 12 years since Carolyn's death, and Meredith had become my only reason to wake up. I'd sold Thorne Manufacturing, my father's company, specifically to support her dreams. $400,000 for her medical degree she never finished, $70,000 for her wedding. Monthly investments we both knew were gifts. Jasper's voice had been grateful on the phone. "Garrett, you saved us. Meredith's blessed to have you." Blessed. That word echoed as I passed another overturned semi. Was she blessed? Or had I created something monstrous? A dependency so complete that my love had become her lifestyle. The Denver skyline finally emerged through the snow at 11:47 p.m. Every vertebrae in my spine felt like broken glass. My hands so cramped I could barely open them, but joy overshadowed agony. Meredith's house in Cherry Creek glowed warmly, the same Christmas lights I'd installed during Thanksgiving, twinkling against the storm. I sat in the car for a moment, forcing my crippled hands to release the wheel, practicing breathing through the pain so she wouldn't see how much this trip had cost me. The last thing I wanted was her pity. The walkway was treacherous with ice. I moved carefully, gifts balanced precariously, using my cane to steady legs that screamed with each step. Through the front door, I heard laughter, Meredith's bright giggle mixing with Jasper's deeper chuckle. My heart swelled. They were happy. The money had helped. I raised my hand to knock, then stopped. "God, I hope he dies in this storm." Meredith's voice floated through the door, clear as shattered glass. "If the old fool dies tonight, we get everything. Merry Christmas to us." If this story is touching your heart, please take a moment to subscribe. Your support helps families torn apart by betrayal find their voice. Don't let these crucial stories disappear. Hit that subscribe button now. My hand froze inches from the door. Meredith's voice continued, casual as discussing tomorrow's weather. 20,000, and still drives through a blizzard like some pathetic Santa Claus. Natural selection at work. "Meredith, Jesus," Jasper replied, but he was laughing. "That's your father." "My mother's widow, you mean? If Mom could see him now, this broken, desperate old man treating me like his emotional support animal, she'd be disgusted. Remember Thanksgiving? 4 hours of him groaning about his spine, his loneliness, his sacrifices. I wanted to smother him with a throw pillow." My cane slipped. I caught myself against the wall, gifts threatening to scatter across the icy porch. Inside, Jasper laughed harder. The peppermint bark he makes! Christ, it's like eating toothpaste covered in chocolate! Right? Mom's recipe, supposedly. Mom would never have made anything that tasted like minty chalk. But we have to smile and choke it down because poor crippled Dad spent all week making it with his gnarled little hands. The peppermint bark in my bag seemed to gain weight. 5 days of agony working through arthritis flares that brought tears to my eyes because I thought it reminded her of her mother. You know what the best part is? Meredith's voice dropped conspiratorially. This storm is actually killing people. The news said 23 dead on the highways. Odds are in our favor tonight. You're terrible, Jasper said through his laughter. I'm practical. He's worth at least $3 million after selling the company. That inheritance would set us up for life. No more pretending to care. No more obligatory dinners watching him struggle to hold a fork. No more listening to him wheeze about how much he loves me. Just freedom and money. How much longer do you think he has? Jasper asked, realistically. His doctor called me last month. Dad lists me as his emergency contact. Stage 3 spinal deterioration, advancing arthritis, heart issues from the stress. 6 months? A year, if we're unlucky? I already talked to an estate lawyer about power of attorney. Once he's incapacitated, everything transfers to me automatically. My throat closed. They'd been talking to my doctor behind my back, calculating my expiration date. Maybe tonight's our Christmas miracle. Black ice and a weak heart, perfect combination. To Christmas miracles, Jasper said, and I heard glasses clink. I stepped backward, my foot sliding on ice. The movement was silent, but my soul screamed. 12 years. 12 years of devotion, of building my entire existence around her happiness, and she was toasting to my death. My phone buzzed. Meredith's text. Dad, highways are deadly tonight. 23 fatalities and counting. Please don't risk it. We'd be devastated if something happened. The crying emojis mocked me. She'd sent this while toasting my death, while calculating my net worth, while calling me a fool for loving her. I looked at the warm windows, shadows moving behind curtains where my daughters celebrated the possibility of my death, and made a decision that would change everything. I turned around and walked away. Every view, every subscription helps us share these critical stories about family betrayal and survival. If you've ever discovered someone's true nature, you understand this pain. Please subscribe now. Don't let these truths go untold. The drive back to Chicago was 16 hours of white snow and black rage. My phone rang constantly, Meredith checking if I was okay, her voice dripping with false concern and hidden hope in the voicemails. I didn't answer. Let her wonder if her Christmas wish had come true. By the time I reached Chicago at 4 p.m. Christmas Day, something fundamental had shifted. The physical pain in my spine was nothing compared to the ice that had formed where my heart used to be. I sat in my empty house, staring at Carolyn's photo, and began to plan. The next evening, I made my first move. Meredith called repeatedly before I finally answered, making my voice weak, shaky. Meredith? I'm sorry, I should have called sooner. Dad, oh my God, where are you? We've been checking accident reports all day. Let her admit she'd been hoping to find my name. There was an accident. Black ice near Des Moines. 18-car pileup. Her gasp sounded eager. Oh, Dad, were you hurt? Are you disappointed I'm alive? Hospitalized. Spinal trauma. They're saying I might not walk again. What? Dad, which hospital? We'll come. No. I made my voice firm despite its weakness. The roads are still dangerous. I'll be in rehabilitation for weeks anyway. I'll call when I know more. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began working. If Meredith wanted to calculate my worth, I'd show her exactly what she was worth to me now. Nothing. The first email went to my attorney, Richardson Pike. Need immediate estate planning changes. Full revision required. The second went to my accountant. Compile all financial transfers to Meredith Turnkelly for the past 5 years. Need complete audit. The third was to a private investigator. Full background check on Jasper Kelly. Focus on financial fraud and hidden assets. By morning, I'd mapped every financial tentacle between Meredith and myself. Joint accounts, credit cards, automatic transfers, life insurance policies. She was embedded in my financial life like a tumor. December 27th, Richardson Pike sat across from me, studying my face as I explained my requirements. You want to remove Meredith as beneficiary from everything? Everything. Create a charitable trust instead. The Chicago Children's Hospital will be the primary beneficiary. They treated Carolyn with more compassion than my daughter has ever shown me. He leaned back. Garrett, this is significant. Has something happened? I've had clarity about our relationship. Execute this immediately. The paperwork will take. I'll pay whatever fees necessary. New documents by New Year's Day. As Richardson prepared the paperwork, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Carolyn's death. Purpose. Cold, calculated purpose. That evening, Meredith texted. Dad, thinking of you constantly. Jasper and I are praying for your recovery. We love you so much. Can't imagine life without you. Heart, prayer hand, heart. I stared at those words, remembering her real ones. If the old fool dies tonight, we get everything. She was about to learn what it meant to get nothing. This story reveals the darkest truths about family betrayal. If you've ever given everything to someone who was waiting for you to die, you need to subscribe to this channel. Your subscription matters. Don't scroll past. January 3rd arrived with surgical precision. While Meredith and Jasper nursed champagne hangovers in Denver, their financial world began its calculated collapse. At 12:01 a.m., the automatic monthly transfer of $5,000 that had sustained their lifestyle simply didn't arrive. The joint checking account was closed, the credit cards canceled. Everything severed with the efficiency of a surgeon removing cancer. I knew Meredith's routine. Every January 3rd, she paid their mortgage in Cherry Creek, shopped at Whole Foods, paid Jasper's country club dues. This year, every transaction would decline. The first call came at 3:47 p.m. Dad? Meredith's voice carried panic. Something's wrong with the banks. All our cards are declined. The accounts are empty. I let it go to voicemail. 20 minutes later. Dad, please call back. Wells Fargo says you closed everything. This has to be a mistake. We can't pay our mortgage. By evening, 12 voicemails had accumulated. Jasper's voice dominated the later ones. Garrett, whatever game you're playing, stop. Meredith's having a breakdown. Fix this now. But the financial cutoff was just the appetizer. The private investigator's report on Jasper had revealed he'd been running a cryptocurrency scam, defrauding investors of nearly $100,000. The FBI tip was submitted January 4th. Meanwhile, I began the social destruction. Meredith had built her reputation on being the devoted daughter caring for her disabled father. Time to correct that narrative. I started with her country club, where she served on the charity board. An anonymous email from a concerned member. Disturbing information about Meredith Kelly discussing her father's death as a financial windfall. Elderly abuse concerns, please investigate. The Denver Art Museum, where she volunteered, received similar warnings about her unstable behavior and financial desperation. Her Instagram, full of loving tributes to her heroic father, was reported with screenshots comparing her posts to recordings I'd made of her death wishes. By January 10th, Meredith's voicemails had evolved from confusion to rage. "I know you're behind this," she screamed in message 20. "The FBI raided our house. The country club revoked my membership. The museum banned me. You're destroying my life because, what, you couldn't make it for Christmas?" She still didn't understand. She had no idea I'd heard her toasting to my death, calculating my expiration date, calling me a fool for loving her. Jasper's message that night was threatening. "You vindictive bastard. When I prove you're doing this, I'll destroy you. What kind of father ruins his daughter's life? What kind of daughter toasts to her father's death?" The eviction notice would arrive in 3 weeks. Their mortgage company, concerned about FBI investigations and frozen assets, would foreclose. Everything would appear to be natural consequences, karma catching up at last. But I saved the cruelest blow for last. If you've ever discovered someone was waiting for you to die, you understand this pain. Please subscribe to our channel. Every subscription helps us tell more stories about betrayal and justice. Subscribe now. Be part of our community.
By February, Meredith's life resembled a demolished skyscraper. Everything that once stood tall reduced to rubble. The FBI had frozen Jasper's assets pending fraud investigation. The country club had formally expelled her for conduct unbecoming. The art museum issued a permanent ban. Every door in Denver's elite circles slammed shut. The death blow came February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jasper was arrested. The voicemail she left that night was different. No anger, just broken sobbing and 7 words. "They took him. The FBI took Jasper." His arrest was inevitable. The cryptocurrency scam had dozens of victims, elderly investors who trusted his promises. Without my money protecting him, without connections to hide behind, he was just another criminal. February 16th, she appeared at my door. I watched through the security camera as she stood on my porch in Chicago's bitter cold. The designer clothes were gone, replaced with a thin jacket from Goodwill. The woman who'd toasted to my death 8 weeks earlier looked like death had visited her instead. She rang the doorbell for 20 minutes before speaking to the camera. "Dad, I know you're in there. Your car's here. Please, I have nothing left." I remained silent, watching her shake with cold and desperation. "I lost the house. Jasper's facing 20 years. Everyone in Denver thinks I'm a monster. Dad, please, whatever I did, I'm sorry." She didn't even know what she was apologizing for. That made it worse. She returned daily, each time more desperate. By February 20th, she was sleeping in a 1998 Honda Civic she'd bought for $500 cash. Her voicemail that night was, "I'm sleeping in my car, Dad. It's 12 degrees. The shelter turned me away. They're full. How did this happen? 2 months ago I had everything. Now I'm eating from food banks. Please, Daddy, please help me." Daddy. She hadn't called me that since high school. February 25th brought the letter slipped under my door. "Dad, I need to know the truth. Were you at our house Christmas Eve? Did you hear us talking before you called? Because if you did, if you heard what we said, I need you to know those words torture me every second. We were monsters. I was a monster. I said things about you that make me vomit to remember. About hoping you'd die. About your peppermint bark. About celebrating your death for money. Dad, I was evil. Pure evil. You weren't pathetic. You were heroic. You weren't a fool. You were a father. The candy wasn't terrible. It was made with crippled hands that screamed with every movement because you loved me. I see it all now. Every sacrifice, every dollar, every mile you drove in agony, it was all love. And I wanted you dead for it. I wanted my father dead for money. What kind of demon does that make me?" I read the letter 3 times, then filed it away. Words were cheap when you were desperate. Consequences were the only teacher that mattered. March 1st, she was gone, her Honda no longer appearing outside. I learned through careful channels that she'd taken a Greyhound to Milwaukee, where she'd found work at a meatpacking plant, night shift, minimum wage, living in a boarding house that charged by the week. My daughter, who'd calculated my net worth while wishing me dead, was now cutting chicken carcasses at 3 a.m. for $7.25 an hour. Sometimes, those we love most reveal themselves as monsters. If this story speaks to you, please subscribe to our channel. Every subscription says these stories matter. Hit subscribe now. Join our community seeking justice.
Spring arrived in Chicago with unusual warmth, but I felt no thaw. My house, once filled with Meredith's photos, now felt like a mausoleum of a relationship that had never really existed. The Chicago Children's Hospital became my sanctuary. 3 days a week, I volunteered in the terminal ward, reading to children who faced death with more grace than my daughter had faced life. They couldn't lie about loving you. They couldn't calculate your worth. They just wanted someone to stay until the end. There was one child, a 6-year-old named Lucy with leukemia, who reminded me of Meredith at that age, before money mattered, before she learned to see me as an ATM with a pulse. April brought another letter from Meredith, forwarded from Milwaukee. Dad, I work 60 hours a week now at the plant. My hands are destroyed from the chemicals. My back screams from standing. Is this how you felt? Pushing through agony because someone needed you? I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I wanted you dead, Dad. I wanted you dead. Those words are carved into my soul. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what work means, what sacrifice means, what love means. You gave me everything, and I gave you death wishes in return. If there's a hell, I've earned my place there. I showed the letter to Lucy during our reading time. She listened with those wise, dying eyes. Did she say sorry? Lucy asked. She did. Do you forgive her? I don't know if I can forgive someone who wanted me dead. She thought about this. My mom says sometimes people get sick in their hearts, not their bodies. Maybe your daughter's heart was sick. May brought news through former business contacts. Meredith had been promoted to shift supervisor. She was taking night classes in accounting, paying as she went. She lived simply, brutally, honestly for the first time in her life. One evening, sitting with Lucy as she struggled through another round of chemo, she asked, Mr. Garrett, why don't you have any pictures of your family? Because my family is here, I said, meaning it. But your daughter wanted me dead for money. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, maybe she was scared. Scared of what? Of loving you so much it hurt. Sometimes I wish my mom would stop loving me so it won't hurt her when I die. That night, I dreamed of Carolyn. She stood in our old kitchen, making peppermint bark. You broke her completely, she said sadly. But Garrett, what did you build from the pieces? June's letter from Meredith was different. Dad, I passed my accounting midterm. The professor said I have a gift for understanding consequences. I almost laughed, then cried. Everything I know about consequences I learned from you. Jasper was sentenced to 15 years. I didn't attend the trial. That life, that person who wanted you dead for money, she's dead now. You killed her. Thank you. Thank you for killing the monster I'd become. The woman writing this letter would die for you, not wish you dead. I know that changes nothing, but I needed you to know. July brought tragedy. Lucy's condition worsened. As I sat beside her tiny bed, she held my arthritic hand with her frail one.
"Mr. Garrett," she whispered, "when I die, will you forgive your daughter?" "Why, sweetheart?" "Because," she struggled for breath, "because if I had a dad who loved me like you loved her, I'd want him to forgive me. For everything. Even for being sick. Even for dying. Even for wishing bad things." Lucy passed on July 18th. I was holding her hand, the way I'd held Carolyn's, the way I'd never hold Meredith's again. Or would I? This story cuts deeper than revenge. It's about the price of wishing someone dead. If you believe in redemption after the unforgivable, please subscribe. Your support helps us tell stories that need to be heard. Subscribe now.
August brought unexpected heat and an unexpected visitor. Jasper's mother stood at my door, a woman I'd met once at the wedding. Elizabeth Kelly, 73, wearing clothes that had seen better decades. "Mr. Thorne," she began, "I need you to know something about what my son did to your daughter." I didn't invite her in, but I listened. Jasper destroyed her. 3 years of psychological manipulation, gaslighting, making her believe loving you was weakness and waiting for your death was strength. He isolated her from friends who might have stopped her descent. He convinced her that hoping for your death was sophisticated, modern, practical. "I still heard her say those words," I replied coldly. After years of conditioning, "Mr. Thorne, I'm a retired psychiatrist. I watched my son systematically break your daughter's connection to you. He was jealous. His own father abandoned us when he was 2. Seeing Meredith with a father who'd do anything for her drove him insane with envy. So he poisoned it, drop by drop, until she couldn't taste love anymore, only see dollar signs." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because my son is in prison where he belongs, but your daughter is in a different kind of prison. She'll never forgive herself for wishing you dead, when those weren't really her thoughts, but his poison. You're both dying from this, just at different speeds." After she left, I sat in Lucy's favorite spot in the children's ward, now empty, processing her words. 3 years of systematic psychological abuse, turning my daughter into someone who could toast my death. The Denver skyline finally emerged through the snow at 11:47 p.m. Every vertebrae in my spine felt like broken glass, my hands so cramped I could barely open them. But joy overshadowed agony. Meredith's house in Cherry Creek glowed warmly, the same Christmas lights I'd installed during Thanksgiving, twinkling against the storm. I sat in the car for a moment, forcing my crippled hands to release the wheel, practicing breathing through the pain so she wouldn't see how much this trip had cost me. The last thing I wanted was her pity. The walkway was treacherous with ice. I moved carefully, gifts balanced precariously, using my cane to steady legs that screamed with each step. Through the front door I heard laughter, Meredith's bright giggle mixing with Jasper's deeper chuckle. My heart swelled. They were happy. The money had helped. I raised my hand to knock, then stopped. "God, I hope he dies in this storm." Meredith's voice floated through the door, clear as shattered glass. "If the old fool dies tonight, we get everything. Merry Christmas to us!" If this story is touching your heart, please take a moment to subscribe. Your support helps families torn apart by betrayal find their voice. Don't let these crucial stories disappear. Hit that subscribe button now. December 23rd. 1 year since the worst night of my life. Snow fell on Chicago like a benediction as I stood in my kitchen, making peppermint bark with hands that hurt less than my heart. Each piece perfect, the way Carolyn taught me, the way Meredith once loved before she wished me dead. The doorbell rang at 7 p.m. Meredith stood on my porch, but barely recognizable. 40 pounds thinner, aged 10 years, wearing a Salvation Army coat over a meatpacking plant uniform. She held a small container in her shaking hands. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said quickly. I made Mom's peppermint bark.
I wanted you to have it, from someone who knows now that every day you're alive is a gift I don't deserve." She set the container down and turned to leave. "Meredith." She froze but didn't turn. "Jasper's mother came to see me." Her shoulders began shaking. "I know. She wrote me, told me she explained what he did. It doesn't matter. I still wished you dead." "Yes, you did." We stood there in the snow, father and daughter, separated by death wishes and silence. "There's a little girl," I said suddenly. "Maria, 7 years old, terminal brain cancer at Children's Hospital. She needs someone to read to her. Her family can't afford to miss work." Meredith turned, confusion in her hollow eyes. "I volunteer there Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 2 to 5 p.m. Maria likes fairy tales, the ones where people get second chances." Understanding dawned, not forgiveness for wishing me dead, but a possibility, a place to begin again. "Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays," she repeated softly. I went inside without another word. December 24th, exactly 1 year since she'd wished me dead, I sat in my study with the final paperwork. Richardson Pike had prepared everything perfectly. The will now split 3 ways: a third to Children's Hospital, a third to Meredith in trust for education and housing only, a third to establishing a fund for families of terminal children.
Christmas morning, I arrived at the hospital to find Meredith already there, reading to Maria in a voice broken by tears. She looked up when I entered, hope and terror warring in her eyes. "She likes my voices," Meredith said simply. "She has good taste." We sat together, 3 broken people finding grace, Maria between us like a bridge over the abyss. The conversation would come, about Jasper, about manipulation, about becoming someone who could wish death on your father, about redemption after the unforgivable. But for now, we just existed in the same space, reading about princes and princesses who found happily ever after despite terrible curses. "I start at H&R Block next month," Meredith said quietly. "Entry level, minimum wage, but honest. Good. I live in a studio above a laundromat. Mice and mold, but it's mine. That's what matters." Maria fell asleep between us, tiny hand holding mine, tiny foot touching Meredith's knee. "Dad?" Meredith's voice was barely audible. "Do you think Mom could forgive me for wishing you dead?" I thought of Carolyn, of Lucy, of Grace beyond deserving. She'd say everyone deserves redemption, even someone who wished their father dead for money. Meredith's tears fell silently. "But Meredith," I added, steel in my voice, "you only get 1 second chance after wishing me dead. 1. I understand." We sat with Maria until visiting hours ended. As Meredith gathered her things, she turned back. "Dad, thank you for destroying me after I wished you dead, for taking everything away, for teaching me that some words can never be unsaid, some wishes can never be unwished, but also for this, for letting me exist near you again despite everything." After she left, I stood in the hospital chapel, surrounded by prayers of desperate families. Maybe that was the answer, not forgetting she'd wished me dead, not pretending it was okay, but choosing to build something new from the ashes of death wishes.
3 years later. I'm 67 now, spine worse, hands barely functional, but somehow still here despite my daughter's long-ago wish for my death. Meredith manages a small accounting firm now, specializing in helping fraud victims rebuild. She never remarried, says she needs to earn the right to be trusted with another person's heart. We have dinner monthly, nothing fancy, usually hospital cafeteria food after visiting the children. The ghost of that Christmas Eve sits between us always, the night she wished me dead for money. We don't discuss it, but it's there in every careful word, every measured gesture, every moment of grace we don't deserve, but choose anyway. Last week, she left a voicemail. "Dad, it's late, but I wanted you to tell me Maria asked about you today. She's responding to treatment. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. She said to tell you she loves you. And Dad, so do I. Not your money, not your inheritance, not what you can do for me. Just you, alive, breathing, here. The father I wished dead 3 years ago is the father I'd die for now. Thank you for surviving my death wish. Thank you for teaching me that some sins require a lifetime of redemption. See you Monday." I saved that message. Evidence that sometimes the worst betrayals can become the foundation for something harder but truer. That wishing someone dead doesn't have to be the end of the story, but it changes everything. Forever.
Thank you for experiencing this journey. If you believe in justice and redemption after the unforgivable, subscribe to our channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that even death wishes don't have to be final. Your subscription helps us tell more stories about the hardest truths of family, betrayal, and the long road back from wishing someone dead.